Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Ian. Welcome, everybody, in this session. Today, what we are going to do is talk about creativity and how to develop creativity in the English language classroom. Couple of apologies before I start. Yes, I already started excuses. One of the things is that I'm in hotel quarantine right now because I came back to Sarawak, and although I try to control my environment, if there are any disruptions knocking on the door or anything, I'm so sorry about that. I can't really control that. And the thing is, because I have been locked into this room for the past 2 weeks without any possibility of opening the window and having central air conditioning, I picked up a little bit of sinusitis. So I have a cough, but I've got a hot cup of tea, so I try to get through the talk without too much disruptions. All right. The plan is that we talk about creativity a little bit, and then we'll try a couple of activities that I think can develop creativity in the language classroom. And then after that, the floor is going to be yours to think about how those activities can actually develop the student's creativity. All right. I would like to start with a quotation from Albert Einstein. And he is saying that imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know now. And understand while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. So why is imagination more important than knowledge? You probably heard about a scientific field, which is futurology. So there are people who are trying to predict what the future will bring. And one of these guys said that human knowledge, as we know it, has been doubling in about 100 years up to the 1900s. So what we knew about the world doubled from the 1800s to the 1900s. And then we got to about 1945, and then human knowledge started to double in 25 years. Then in the 1980s, that was again shortened with all the technological improvement to about a year and a couple of months. And now in 2020, 2021, they probably didn't predict the pandemic, but they said that human knowledge will double in about every 12 hours. That's mind-boggling. And what it means is that simply transmitting knowledge is just not enough for education. We can't do that because we can't cope with the amount of knowledge which is out there. So then, why is creativity important? Because, you know, schools by default have to prepare students for a future that we can't really predict. And when these students get stuck with something, then they choose to think rather than remember. So developing skills, creative thinking, creative problem solving, or other creative ideation is very good because they are not stuck with a limited amount of knowledge, but they can create new knowledge for themselves. And here's my first task for you. Creativity is a very elusive concept. So what I would like you to do is to take a little bit of time and in the chat box, please enter what you think or how you would define creativity is. So what is creativity? What does it mean to you? Just put your answer in the chat box and then we'll see the answers. Thinking out of the box, your inner voice, something unusual. There are lots of boxing things, something novel and innovative, adapting or adaptation, being imaginative, unique. Excellent. Creativity is a personal style. That's interesting. Using the limited resources. Being different from others. That's also interesting. A couple of very good ideas. I think we don't have any more coming. So how about we look at what other people say about creativity? And who else to start with than Ken Robinson. And Ken Robinson says that creativity is having original ideas that have value. So if you look at his definition, there are two parts to it, that the ideas have to be original, so they have to be new, but they also have to be valuable. So for example, you know, if you walk into your classroom or you are teaching in front of your camera and you are half naked, that would be quite original, right? But the value of that might be slightly questionable, okay? So ideas are not just about originality, or creativity is not just about originality, but it's about also originality that has value, which is appreciated by our peers. They also go on, I mean, Robinson and, oops, I think I've got, yeah. So Robinson and Aronica also say that you can think of creativity as applied imagination. And we have already talked about imagination, but imagination can be free-flowing. Imagination can take you everywhere, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So we need to limit our imagination to a particular field. So creativity always works within a particular limitation. So you need limit to be creative. Whereas imagination, daydreaming, you know, you can do whatever you wish, but you have to apply it in a particular context to make it work and to acknowledge it as something creative. Going a little bit even further, we have Steve Jobs, who was saying that creativity is just connecting things. So what Jobs was saying here is that most of the time, you don't necessarily have to come up with something completely new. You can combine things in an original new way. So you build on what's already there, but you create something new by using all those resources, all those elements that are available to us. And sometimes we do that. Actually, we do it quite often. But what's also very interesting is that all that creativity talk relates extremely well to language learning and language teaching. Because if you think about it, language is a productive phenomenon. Language is creative in itself. We coin new words, we are coming up with new phrases, we are using language in very creative ways. So therefore, when we teach language, we should probably try to teach our students how to be creative with language and being creative in general in order to promote the language learning processes. Actually, Carter is saying that linguistic creativity is not simply a property of exceptional people, but an exceptional property of all people. And because of such, we need to develop it, because contrary to common belief, creativity can be developed, creativity can be learned. It's a skill to a certain extent. So the more you use it, the better you get at it. And there are many different ways you can practice creativity. So what I was planning for today is that we will look at certain activities that can be used in the language classroom and which may contribute to your learners' general overall creativity and also to the linguistic creativity. And after we have looked at these examples, then we'll think about how they will develop the learner's creativity. So are you ready? Let's do it then. So this is the first task I would like to give you. Here's a picture, and I will also post this picture into the chat box. So if you want to download it, if you want to have a closer look, then you can have it. So in this picture, you see many, many things. Your task is going to be very simple. Try to categorize the object in the picture. So you can create as many different messages as you can. And I just noticed that I sent the picture only to my good friend Phil and not to everybody in the group. So now it is all there for everyone. So when you see some categories, then you can just put them in the chat box. One obvious category would be objects that have some red in it and objects that don't have anything red. Okay, but try to create the category. So don't just simply say gadgets, say gadgets and what else?
Yes, and then hi,
okay, so stationery and fruit. How about the radiator in the middle?
Actually, only you here. I just share with you lah. The last three, the last two, it's less than 2.
I just had to mute Eugene. So there's this food and technology, red, black, and white. Come on, you have to think about some more interesting categorizations. Binary, what do you mean binary, Nira? There's computing and furniture. I can see some strawberries. Where would strawberries go into compute? Is it computing or is it furniture? Some objects out, there's only one, and some there are two. Okay. Murder weapons and non-murder weapons. I think most of them could be used as a murder weapon, maybe except for the slippers. But maybe even that can be used. Nouns and adjectives. Can you see adjectives in the picture? Wow. Things for different family members. Oh, that's very interesting. That's very nice, Jenny. You can also categorize them by shapes. That's correct. Rectangular and circular ones, or freeform. Old-fashioned and modern. Where would a strawberry go into that category? Phil, that's very good. Things I own and things I don't own. Excellent. Juicy. Yes. And not juicy, I guess. You could also think about things like organic materials and non-organic materials. Things I like, things I don't like. Exactly. Male and female users. Wow. I'm trying to look at some of the items that will be typically used by males or typically used by females, but I don't think I can. Maybe it's cultural. I'm not sure. Items most people own. All right, so you get the idea. You give your learners a picture with lots of different objects, and you just simply ask them to create categories. And it's really up to them how they categorize. The more categories they create, the better. Excellent. Now let's see the next task that I want to give to you. I will give you an object, but not from a typical view. It's going to be an unusual view. And you will have to guess what the object is, okay? So maybe in the chat box, you can just put in, is it a something? Or you can even unmute yourself and just shout in your suggestion. So are you ready for it? Here's the first one. What is it? Is it a frame? Good guess, but no. And it's still not a frame. Yes, it's a square, but it's an object. Is it a door frame? No. Good guess, but no. Is it a table? A table how? Notebook, parcel, bread, paper tablecloth. Gosh, so many ideas coming in. Somebody said it's a book. If it's a book and it's from an unusual view, what kind of view do we have of this book? A table from the top. This activity is also very good for vocabulary development because the students are throwing up so many words that you can have it. The base of a box, part of a ceiling. You are very good at this. Let me give you the answer, and anybody who guessed that it was a table from above, you were correct. Are you ready for the next unusual view? So here it comes. What is this? You are just simply too creative. That's exactly the answer I had. In this, a door from the side. A zipper is also possible, but this is a door from the side. So let me share the last one with you very quickly. What is this? A car from the bottom. Bottom view of a toaster could be. That's actually a very good one. If it's a car from below, then it's not a very well engineered car, because if I look at where the wheels are, they're a little bit off, or they're a little bit in a strange position. 3D plan of a house, it cannot be a plan, it has to be an object. It's a car bottom view. Tablecloth. Tablecloth seems to be a very popular option for almost everything that I'm showing you. But in actual fact, this is a car from below. And sorry for the drawing. This is something that you can do. But there are many different kinds of drawings that you can do, and simply let the students figure out what these things are. So far we had the categorization, we had the unusual view activity. They're actually very fast activities. You can do them very quickly at the beginning of the lesson, at the end of the lesson, or even in the middle if you need a little breaker space, or if you need a transition activity to connect two different bits of a lesson. So here's the next task. And in the next task, I would like you to write a short story with as few words as possible. But this time, you will also get a clue. So I will also give you a picture story. So what you have to do is you have to describe this picture story with as few words as possible in the chat box, okay? So let me show you the story. Here's the story. I will also share the picture here if you want to download it for later use. So what kind of sort of story could you write here? Or you can even try to unmute yourself and just simply tell the story quickly. This is one of those awkward moments in online teaching when you set a task for your students and you don't see them. And you are just staring at your own screen, wondering what's happening. A typical Dora the Explorer moment. You ask a question and then you just stare at your viewers. Didn't see it coming. That's absolutely a very, very, very good, very short story. Short-lived joys, Ali. That's also a great, very, very short story. Desolation in an island full of hallucinations. Ooh, wow, look at that. The shock of my life. Got nothing. In my dream. In a normal classroom activity, what I would ask the students to do is to try to speak So in a normal class, I would ask them to orally tell me the story. And this is actually a very good grammar activity in a way that when students are focusing on the meaning, they forget about grammar. So in a way, you can steer them to recognize the importance of grammar when telling a story. Shipwreck dream and hopes dashed. Excuse me. Perfect. We've got a couple of very good activities. I will now upload another story here, but this is slightly different. So you will have it in the chat box, and you can also have it on my screen. But the reason why I upload it into the chat box is because now I will put you in breakout rooms very quickly. So in your breakout rooms, you will have about 5-6 minutes, or maybe a little bit more, just checking my time. Yeah, but maximum 10 minutes. And you have to create a story based on these frames. Now, the trick is that you could rearrange the frames any way you wish, okay? And when we come back, I will ask 1 or 2 groups to read out their stories, okay? So let me very quickly put you into a breakout room. Just hold on for a second because my laptop screen is quite small, so I have to arrange everything. So we have 45 participants. That means that I can probably create 9 breakout rooms, and you will be automatically put in those rooms. All right, so I'm creating the rooms. You have about 10 minutes to come up with a story based on this story. Okay, so please go to your assigned breakout rooms.
Hello, you have been assigned to the different breakout rooms. So you can just click on the room, yeah, for this session.
new lah.
Okay, now everybody's coming back. That's great.
Got kicked out of the breakout room. If I just click.
Let's see if how many people are back. Not everybody yet.
They're having too much fun discussing.
Ah, I see. That's good. That's good. That's very good. The only thing is that time is not waiting for us.
Yeah.
So would anybody like to share something? Joseph, would you like to
Me. Yes. Oh, so excited for this. Okay, so for our breakout rooms, we have come up with the sequence of 2, 6, 3, 5, 4, 1. Okay, so it started off with this guy, this average looking Joe finding this book, and this book that's picture number 2 contains this map or this information that there's a princess up on the hill that needs rescuing, and then he was like, oh, surprise, there is a princess that lives up the hill that needs rescuing. So it's number 6, he looks surprised. So he begins this long, treacherous journey up the hill. That's picture number 3, fighting monsters and dragons, slaying all sorts of things, Game of Thrones style, and all of us. And in the end, he reaches the castle on top of the hill. That is picture number 5. And then when he reaches the castle, number 5, he opens the last door to the chamber. He sees this princess. That is picture number 4, who is a sassy, independent lady who do not need no man to rescue her. So he was like, I don't need you. Go ahead. Go away. And then he was like, oh, left disappointed. That's number 1. So that's my sequence.
Excellent. The brilliant 21st century story. Strong, independent ladies don't need knights to rescue them from the dragon.
Yes.
Perfect. Is there anyone else who would like to share a story with us? Any other groups?
I'll share what breakout room 2 has
Please.
got. Okay, we've gone with the pictures in sequence. Actually, it's about a child who doesn't really like going to school. And he dragged his feet up the mountains daily to school. But one day his father was informed by the school that he wasn't really in school. So they aren't really happy with it. So we left it with the story with just 5 words. Mountain of Hope's Dash. That's all. Yeah.
All right.
No dragons, no dragons, no lions.
No dragons. I mean, but you never know. I mean, dragons can come later. in the sequel. It is a brilliant story as well, and as you can see that you can create so many different stories. I mean, what it depends on how you create a context for this and how you interpret the visuals, and also how you arrange them, because each frame could provide a new entry point to the story. But well done, everybody. I think you did a good job. Unfortunately, we don't have time to listen to all the stories, because otherwise we would be late from Prof. Stevens' closing plenary. So let me just share my screen again with you, because there's one more thing I would love to do. And this is an empty cartoon. The New Yorker usually has this competition when they publish an empty cartoon, and they ask the readers to submit a caption that would go with that cartoon. And this is what I would like you to do now. So here's this cartoon, and in the chat box, you can enter what caption would be the best for this particular cartoon.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part, because there was some interruption?
Oh, I'm so sorry. So we have this empty cartoon, and your task will be is to write a caption to go with this cartoon. So what would be the text to go with the cartoon? And you can enter those into the chat box. So what kind of caption would go with this cartoon? It's just me, Mac. That's a good one, Sarah. Your generation is over. Get lost. Toes up. Usually the way, size doesn't matter. Usually the way jokes work linguistically is that there's an unusual twist in them. So you expect something to happen and then you get the opposite. So maybe you can also think along those lines. So what kind of sort of unexpected conversation you can put into the caption? Gotcha. You can't even reach the trigger, you punk. It's a very confident cat. Tell me where the food is. Where do you keep the cheese? Well, in that particular week, I think it was a librarian who won the competition, and the caption that he used was this: 6 rounds, 9 lives, you do the math. So, you know, giving something very unexpected. That's how jokes work. Usually they juxtapose certain things, and then when you expect the usual, they give it a twist, and that's how it becomes funny and interesting. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time. I think we've got only like 10 more minutes left. And just like Avril, I have overestimated the time that we will have together. Actually, I planned for 60 minutes, not 50 minutes. And I wanted to do a collaborative composition. I'm not going to do it now because I don't have the time, and it would be just simply foolish to start anything that we cannot finish. But I'll tell you how it works. So in a physical classroom, I would give each student a sheet of paper, and I would ask them to write a title of a story they would like to work on. So when they got the title, then I asked them to pass the paper to the person sitting next to them. So then the next person will write the first sentence. When it's done, they pass it on again, and then the following students will write the second sentence. But the sentences have to be linked to each other. And this goes on until the title gets back to the original student who wrote it. It's a brilliant writing activity because every student is writing all the time for about 30-40 minutes. They are thinking about text cohesion. They are thinking about how to build the story, how to make it funny, how to make it serious. And they don't even realize how much writing they do in that 30 minutes. Organizing it in a virtual world is a little bit more difficult. It took me about 4 days to figure it out, how to do it. And there we go. I cannot really do it because we don't have the time, unfortunately. Right. So what we are left with is trying to connect what we have been talking about. So I would like you to think about how you think these activities have been developing the students' creativity. So we had the categories activity, and you had to create categories. We had the unusual views. We had the 2 story activities, one with saying a story with as few words as possible, and the other is using the picture props to make a story. And finally, we had the empty cartoon. So how do you think these stories work on creativity? How do they develop the learner's creativity? Maybe you can add it into the chat box or just unmute yourself. Brainstorming, okay. I mean, if anybody would like to contribute, you can just simply unmute yourself and maybe say, might be faster than typing. Okay, Gladys says that in these activities, the students will be challenged to think differently. Okay, and that's definitely one way to improve the creativity of the learners. So instead of thinking in the good old-fashioned cliche ways, the students are challenged to come up with something new. Yes, somebody said.
Collaborative composition during online teaching.
So how does it develop the students' creativity?
I think you need to give them some rules. For example, number of characters, maybe the vocabulary. You need to give them some guidelines before you begin.
Absolutely correct. Depending on your students, of course, you can set up limitations. You can also set up limitations with how many lines a story would have. With the online collaborative composition, I limited the story to 7 lines. So in a way, you know, students know that they have to finish the story in just as many lines. So they have to build up, they have to get to a climax, and then they have to come to a resolution. Thinking out of the box, somebody says, outcomes based, but more than one way of getting there. Exactly. So there are many different, all of the activities are open-ended. So all the answers could be good and accepted. Actually, one way or one stage of creativity is what we call volume. So it's the generation of as many ideas as possible. And at that stage, we are not really concerned about how good the ideas are. It's the ability to generate as many possible ideas as the students can. Okay, that's very important for creativity. You know, out of hundreds of ideas, maybe one will be the winning one. Very quickly, let me just go to the conclusion part, because I was also thinking about how these activities can develop creativity. So I can share these with you here now. So one of the things is to develop creativity is to make unusual connections. Sort of come up with as many things as you can. You can even give your students a paper clip and ask them how many different ways you can think of using this. Yes, I know that there's 5 more minutes. Vivian is waving at me that there are 5 more minutes left. I know, I keep a very close eye on my clock. So making unusual connections helps develop creativity because as you remember what Steve Jobs said, is creativity is basically making new connections. So seeing things that are not there explicitly, but trying to link them to form some new ideas. Another thing again, that develops creativity is interpreting something from a new angle, looking at something from an unusual way, from an unusual perspective, because then you see a completely new world. Some of you might know that my background is also in photography. I'm a trained photographer. And one of the things that I learned in photography school is that, you know, if you walk in a city, try to raise your eye level up to the top of the buildings, or up to like 3-4 meters high, and then you will notice a completely different city or different town, because you will notice different details on the building that at your usual eye level you will never see. Okay, so you try to see things from a different perspective, and that helps creativity. Another thing is when you're trying to assign meanings, you're trying to create new meanings. That was in the different stories, especially the second story, when you had to rearrange the frames. So there were some visual clues, but you added the meaning, you expanded the already existing meaning to a new one, and this is how the activity worked. And actually, someone is now at my door ringing the bell, but I will finish before we sign off. Finally, try to play with the unexpected, because the unexpected is always there. The unexpected is part of the creativity, is part of the creative process. So if you open up your classroom and you allow learners to contribute with whatever they have, rather than just asking questions for which you already know the answer, then you're not developing the student's creativity. And I would even risk saying that you are not really developing your student, because that's not learning, or not how learning takes place. Learning is organic. Learning is going around us. So the unexpected, you know, when your students are coining new words in the classroom to create internal jokes that only you and the students understand, then they are practicing that linguistic creativity. And finally, one thing that you can do is they don't have to create something absolutely original. Okay, what you need to do is that you create something, you further something which is there, and this is a huge difference between Western creativity and Oriental creativity, because usually in Western creativity we want something absolutely new, whereas in Oriental creativity you can build on what's already there. So that was the collaborative composition, for example, is the students had to add something new to a story which was unfolding. Okay, so I think these activities would be very good to develop not only your students' language abilities, because as you have noticed, we were using lots of vocabulary. It's a very good vocabulary practice, but also their general creativity. And with that, I thank you for participating very actively in the workshop. Great job for everybody. And I am wishing you good luck for the plenary, which is coming in a few seconds. And I managed to finish just in time. If you have any questions, you can email me, or you can just put it into the text box here, and I'll make sure that I will get back to you. My email is very simple. It's Tamas, T-A-M-A-S-K @sunway.edu.my. You also stay safe, everybody, and enjoy the closing plenary by Prof. Stephen. All right. Bye, everybody.
Click on no link, huh?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
Missed our face-to-face chats during.
Of course.
Yeah, it was interesting those times. Yeah. But
all right.
stay safe, stay
Bye-bye.
happy. Bye. Bye.